obviously we talked about the offense looking rough. It's the least amount of, so this, some of the numbers I looked at. It's the least amount of yards and touchdown passes Mahomes has thrown in the first 4 games of a season in his career, and tied for the most amount of interceptions he has had through the first 4 games with TD to interception ratio of 8-4. Mahomes has also added a new arsenal to his game in rushing, more than he's ever rushed in the first 4 games of the season. He's rushed 23 times for 154 yards. The only other time he got this close to rushing totals was in 2020 when he rushed 18 carries for 108 yards. But all things, we play a tough defense this week. Jets, although the record doesn't indicate it, we played a tough defense. However, this week, totally opposite of that. We're going to play the let me see the exact numbers here. The 13th, the Minnesota Vikings have given up the 13th most passing yards in the league and are giving up just under 24 points a game. So night and day compared to the Jets. Minnesota, along with the Chiefs, are amongst the 7 teams with only 1 interception this season. So a team that really doesn't get a lot of takeaways, and they give the ball away a lot too. So they're on the other end of the spectrum here. But to kind of dive into Patrick Mahomes' rushing ability, we're calling it the Patrick Mavick experience. Remember that old commercial, that Nike commercial back in the day, the Michael Vick experience? At what point do you think DCs will look to stop his running game, JD? And do you think this could be something that can kind of be the turning point to our offensive woes, where defenses kind of key in on his rushing ability and then thus giving it maybe less guys in the secondary, more openings in the secondary? Because Mahomes said this week, actually making a joke about his rushing, that he says he hopes that these DCs start to put a spy on him, because he wants to have that. He says once DCs start to put a spy on me consistently, that's how you know you've made it as a scrambling quarterback in the league. But do you think that is something that we could exploit if DC start to put a spy on him consistently, giving him more avenues to kind of throw in the secondary? What do you think about his rushing ability as a whole so far?
So we've always known he has this capability to run the football. He does a great job with his legs, extending the plays. I've always said this: he is probably underrated as a running quarterback. I mean, he really is, because we see in the offseason how hard he working on his speed, working on his legs, working on his agility, just working on his athletic ability. So I think he's one of the most dangerous quarterbacks as far as running with his legs. Now, the thing is, because he is so gifted with arm strength and making any throw that's ever been invented, you always got to make sure that you taper, the strongest suit that he has, and that's his arm. That's his passing ability, right? And so that's what more defensive coaches are going to be relying on. They're going to be checking and making sure that they keep that in check more than anything else. But the thing is, because he can hurt you with his legs, you'll have to put a spy on him. I think, if anything, when I see teams start to do that, when they have a linebacker or the nickel guy spying Patrick Mahomes, that makes it more difficult for him to make yards with his legs. And I think that's a very good as far as a defensive strategy, especially stopping somebody like Patrick Mahomes. Because that's the thing about it, man. Like, yeah, you could say, oh, well, he passes a lot and he does. He's the top quarterback in the league, I think, and he can always do that. Obviously, what they've shown so far has been a little difficult because of the defense that they've been going against. But without a doubt, you cannot discount what he does with his legs. So, yeah, man, they got to make sure they try to keep that under wraps if they can. It's going to be difficult, though.
So, talk to me like from a football perspective, for people who may not know what a spy really does. What would be the drawbacks for a defense's point of view to having to spy a quarterback, and how could that benefit our offense if more teams start to do that? I know it may take away from his rushing ability, kind of hurt us a little bit in that way, but it could also help us in the passing game where you have a guy kind of fixated on Mahomes scrambling.
Basically, all you do is you just kind of take a guy out of coverage, taking him out of an area. That's a good thing about a spy, because the spy will sit back, waiting, still, actively being in that area, okay, where you still got to kind of watch what he's going to do. And he's just kind of watching Patrick's eyes, if you will, to where he's throwing, where he's looking at. And then as soon as he takes off, he's got him. He's got to go and go get him right now. And so he's trying to make him determine that if he's not throwing the football right now and he decides to take off with his legs, I'm going to meet him at that point where he can either make it an errant throw, or maybe I could go ahead and make a good tackle. And so Teams have been very successful when they do things like that. But that's essentially what you do is you take a guy out of coverage to cover Patrick Mahomes. But if he's still sitting there and Patrick's still just kind of patting the ball, still looking, the guy's still sitting in space, kind of making sure you don't have any of those. Obviously, it's going to be more of the shallow routes that guys are running, okay, which we like to throw a lot of also too. So yeah, that's what essentially what happens.
Yeah, it's the that everyone's supposed to be getting one of those today, JD.
Oh, okay. I'm like,
it was a worldwide test.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, that's right. I knew that. I was just making sure. Okay, so yeah, so that's pretty much what it is. That's pretty much what's going on.
Schematically, from offensive perspective, could this be something, an avenue that could help us as far as getting our receivers into more empty lanes? Schematically, just in general, could this help if teams start to just put a permanent spy on him?
You can try to game plan it. You can. You won't really know until you actually see it, if a guy's spying you or not, because a guy can just sit back and he might be taking somebody.
I'm just getting it now.
But we could see a guy taking off, and we'll look to try to either check the ball down to him, knowing that he's taking Patrick. Patrick can see it if he has man. So if we think he has man, that linebacker, obviously that's how you make the count, right? He either has number 1, number 2, number 3. That's how you kind of that's how you set it up defensively. But you can possibly do that. Like, part of those things is out leveraging the defense. So you'll do the little swing route, or maybe out in the flat. So if a corner doesn't come down and get him, and if the linebacker's not pushing out to go get that guy, you can kind of dink and dunk in those areas all the time. The thing is, what makes it more difficult is if you're only rushing 3. If you rush 3 and their 4th guy is that linebacker, then they still have 7 in coverage, which is still going to be kind of difficult, right? What you can do a lot of screens. You could do maybe maybe a couple little check downs, like I said before, maybe over the bar, like out in the flat, just to see what guys how they responded to it. But yeah, you could definitely try to scheme it up. Maybe even then, when you're doing that, run the football. Okay, bring a guy in motion and then give the ball to him off the jet sweep, right? So there's a few things you could definitely do. But I do like running the football. Maybe that wraparound guard coming and kicking out, or getting around on the edge. All those things can work. Do
you? There's a mixed bag on Twitter. Some people love that Mahomes is actually starting to utilize his legs more, because you talked about it. I mean, he's a dual threat guy that we really haven't seen much of this dual threat aspect. He picks his spots, and I love that he picks his spots when doing so. But are you? Because some people are concerned about it. Some people are kind of, they love that he's utilizing. Some people are scared that he's putting himself in harm's way by running more often than he usually does. What are your thoughts on that?
I do agree. I agree with him. I made this point, I think, on the show last time. I was just saying, sometimes he'll run with his legs, or he might take off trying to extend plays. And he was doing a lot more east-west. It's kind of the one that gets him in trouble. Pat, move back, move to the left, to the right. And then all of a sudden he's toward the sideline, and these guys are going on, knocking him out on his legs and stuff like that. I hate things like that. But him running, I think he has good awareness on where guys are. He doesn't really put himself in that position, going north and south as far as getting down. But I think the running is a consequence and a symptom of guys not getting open, guys not winning on routes. So you hate to see Pat running around because he's maybe not seeing guys get open on routes. But also, too, okay, he has a little bit of responsibility on himself to get the ball to some guys that's open. Can't look for the deep ball all the time. And he's been missing some of the shorter routes, some of the check downs that he need to kind of just dump the ball off to and let these guys make a play. So it's a little bit, a couple things that's there, right? And I kind of went back over the game again today, just kind of look at it. And I was sitting there thinking Pat could have checked this one down. There's guys that's open. And so sometimes we say, oh, well, the wide receiver's not getting open on man, or, these. Well, yeah, sometimes they're not. Then other times, Pat's just missing them. He's just missing them. I don't think going because you how you dictate when you're watching what the defense gives you, whatever coverage, you're already thinking, okay, I'm going to first receiver, second receiver, third receiver, right? So he's going through his progression. So if he comes out of the huddle thinking, okay, this is going to be my first read, all right, he might not be scanning the field like he should. And sometimes that goes into, well, are the guys getting open? Am I trusting these guys? I'm looking for Kelsey because I know Kelsey's going to catch the football. I'm looking for the deep play because it's always been open. You know, I got guys who can run deep. But sometimes you just got to be safe. Sometimes you just got to be more headsy as far as like what you're trying to do with the offense, just moving the chains. Okay. And sometimes it is just taking that 5-yard little dump off and then, you know, play the next play.
Yeah, it really feels like it's kind of a repeat of 2 years ago when teams started. We talked about this at post game where the teams started around that too high shell against us, and Pat wasn't being patient. He wasn't taking what he's getting, and he did a great job of that last year. Whereas now it seems like we're going back 2 years ago again. It seems like that, and he's just take the defense is giving you. There's a few times during this game where McKinnon was open in the flat, just wasn't going to him. Some of these guys were open in the flat, and he wasn't going to those guys.
Well, it is. It's like the adjustment, right? Because Tyreek Hill was so good at getting behind defenses. We was killing defenses all day. Didn't matter what you was running. Tyreek Hill was getting open. He was getting around guys, getting past guys. And Pat knew he could just throw the ball up to him because I know Tyreek's down there somewhere, right? Yeah. That whole deal. But now, because you have to adapt to what you see defensively and with the guys that's playing around you, now you got to do some things differently. Now you got to have a whole different mindset and mentality of your thinking with the progression of the plays and, you know, trying to get the balls to certain guys. But also, too, like I said, the check down, right? You got to go to the check down now. Like, hey, Pat, listen, you know, they're going to keep running deep. They're going to make sure we don't beat them deep. They're going man. Somebody's going to be open. Get the ball out of your hands right now and get it out quick. Get into a rhythm. And I think it helps out, too, because sometimes I see this. I see when he's starting to pat the ball, he's starting to use it with his feet. He's getting out of rhythm, okay? And it almost hurts us more than it helps us. It hurts him more than it helps him. So a lot of it has to be the trust on the guys, and it has to be some of him. It's got to be some of the receivers. Just kind of get this thing put in order, man, really. And I think they'll just figure it out. It's still a young group. They're still learning each other. All the guys, I mean, think about it. You said 2 years ago, who's here from 2 years ago on the wide receiver? Exactly, right? I mean, you know, that was the thing about it. There was always a carryover. There was always somebody still here that knew the system really well as far as like getting open and stuff. Ain't nobody here from 2 years ago. There's nobody. So only one that's the consummate guy is Travis Kelce. And we can't keep putting it on his shoulders. Everybody, well, he's slowing down. No, listen, he's not slowing down. Travis is, we can't keep putting it on his shoulders because defenses figuring out 87 can't beat us. Beat him up, grab, pull, whatever you need to do. Those things take a lot out of a guy. And so they know, like, I promise you, they are telling the linebackers, safeties, everybody, hit Travis Kelce as much as possible, grab him. If they call it, so be it. But what you're going to do is you're going to make sure you get him out of the game.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.